Hey, what's going on YouTube? Welcome to Post Cologne. Today I'm going to give you 10 hidden gem fragrances from the House of Lattafa. So let's jump into it. All right, so today we are talking hidden gem fragrances from the House of Lattafa, my favorite Middle Eastern brand. If you've been following the channel for a while, you know I like me a good Lattafa, but we all know the popular ones. We all know the Lattafa Asads, the Khamrahs, the Fakhars, all the ones that get all the hype and all the play, but I got 10 hidden gem fragrances, ones that people hardly ever talk about, don't get enough love, and I think they need a little bit more attention. So links are going to be down in the description to all these fragrances if you decide you want to check any of them out. Also have some coupon codes, save yourself $5 off your first purchase at Fragrance Buy and Perfume Online if you decide you want to shop with them. So let's quit screwing around and let's get into it. All right, first up from Lattafa, we're going with Lattafa's Reyes. Now this fragrance I've just recently picked up about a month ago in a haul, and I've worn this a handful of times, and this is an absolutely fantastic twist on that Invictus style of DNA. And I know already some of you are just like, oh god, another Invictus clone. This one has got a little bit of a different twist to it than I even expected. The opening is a very Invictus style of opening. It has this orange flower, it's got this melon in there, so it has that fruity sweetness mixing with some citrus. But it also has some really nice spice that's in there. Gives it a little bit of a pop that comes through, just adds a little bit more character to that opening. But it is a very fun, flirty, fresh style of opening to it that you would kind of expect from an Invictus style of scent DNA. But as this gets to the dry down, it kind of warms up a little bit. That fruity sweetness drops back a little bit and you get some nice kind of sweet, ambery style of sweetness, a little bit of a vanillic accord coming through with some nice cedar and some musk. So this does get a little bit warmer and a little bit more mature as this gets to the dry down. So still maintains that fun, flirty aspect to it, but it has more kind of a gentlemanly feel, a little bit more of a mature feel to it. And I absolutely love this. I like how it kind of transitions from that initial opening to that dry down. Great pickup. The performance on this, about 7 hours of longevity, and it does push off pretty good for the first hour and a half before it does settle back in. If you're looking for kind of a nice twist on that Invictus DNA, you might want to check this one out. That's Lattafa's Reyes. All right, next up, going to the Asdaf line with Lattafa's Majd Al Sultan. Now, this fragrance, aside from having one of the sexiest velvet bottles you've ever come across, is a beautiful mix of some smoky accords, some spice, some leathery saffron, and these beautiful sweet balsamic resins with a nice ambery woody dry down. Absolutely gorgeous scent profile in this. Bold, masculine, has a mysteriousness to this. Opens up really heavy though. It's a very strong, smoky, peppery style of scent accord with that leather that comes through from that saffron, a very leathery style of saffron. And it's wrapped with this nice, sweet, balsamic, churchy style of incense, as well as some myrrh that's in there. As you get to the dry down, you get this nice sharp fir that comes through, kind of a light airy cedar, and a really nice ambery base to this, just making this an absolutely gorgeous balance between smoke, spice, and some sweet resins. Beautiful scent accord on this one. Like I said, this is not going to be for everybody. This can be a little bit of a challenging fragrance, but I absolutely love how this comes across. Very complex, dark, heavy, mysterious, and I just can't get enough of this fragrance. One of my favorite fall winter style fragrances from Lattafa. Performance on this is average, about 5-6 hours off skin, and it does push off moderately for about an hour and a half before it does settle back in. If you're looking for that kind of sweet balsamic, smoky, ambery style of fragrance, you definitely want to check this one out. That's Lattafa's Majd Al Sultan. All right, next up, sticking with the Al Sultans, we're going with Lattafa's Kasaid Al Sultan. Now, I'm almost certain I butchered that name. This fragrance is absolutely slept on. This just has such a beautiful, fresh, warm, spicy, sort of sexy, soft allure to it. And a pressurized atomizer, which who doesn't like that? Yeah, it has this really beautiful style of freshness to it that's mixing with these warm spices. So like cinnamon, some cardamom, this kind of honeyed sweetness that's working its way through, and perhaps a little touch of some like sweet, earthy tobacco, a little bit of dryness that's worked in there, and sort of a soft, almost creamy style of woods. This is just a beautiful combination of sweet, spicy, with a little bit of freshness mixed into it, and it's just an absolutely just intoxicating, alluring, you know, intimate style of fragrance. Some have compared this to Dolce & Gabbana's The One. I don't think this is what they were trying to clone, and if they did, they really missed it. This is a lot fresher than the Dolce & Gabbana The One. The spices are kind of there. There's some overlaps, but they do miss the mark on that. But I can see why people would confuse that. It has that warm spiciness, that sweetness to it with the little hints of tobacco. but overall I don't think this is a clone of that fragrance. Performance on this is a little on the weak side, however. It's about 4 or 5 hours worth of longevity, and it only projects moderately for about an hour, hour and a half before it does settle back in. So this is very much a cozy date night style of fragrance, very much cool, you know, cuddling up with your significant other and just breathing in your delicious, sweet, honeyed spices. Absolutely love this one. Beautiful bedtime fragrance, a beautiful date night fragrance, and you can wear this one casually. Definitely something you want to check out. That's Lattafa's Kasaid Al Sultan. All right, next up, going with one of my favorite hidden gems from Lattafa, and that's Lattafa's Oudain. Now, this is just an absolutely gorgeous, sweet, dry leather style of fragrance. Has this opening of this orange, the saffron, you get a little bit of vanilla accords, some dry amber, as well as a little bit of caramel that's worked in there, as well as a little bit of like hints of some tonka. So this just opens up with a nice combination of this bright, refreshing, sweet style of orange mixing with this leathery, sort of a soft, suede style of saffron. There's a lot of S's in that sentence. And then you get some of these vanillic accords, this caramel that moves through, and this really nice dry amber. So it gives it this nice dry woodiness to it, dries out that leather, and just intermingles with all these sweet accords. Just absolutely chef kiss. I love this fragrance. One of my favorite leather style of fragrances. It's like eating an orange creamsicle, wearing a nice suede jacket in the middle of the dry woods. That's the best way I could describe this one. Masculine, bold, but has this fun, flirty nature to it at the same point. And the performance on this is fantastic. I get 8-10 hours longevity, no problem. Has beast mode longevity on this for sure. And it does project off really nice for about an hour and a half, 2 hours before it does settle back in. If you're looking for a nice kind of suede leather style of fragrance that has this dryness to it and some really nice sweet accords running through, you might want to check this one out. That's Lattafa's Oudain. All right, next up, we're going with a flanker to one of the more popular Lattafa fragrances, and it's the hidden gem of Lattafa's Kasaid El Shabab. Now, this fragrance is supposed to be inspired by of Guerlain's Cure Intense. I have not smelled that fragrance, so I can't confirm nor deny, but what I can tell you is this is a very strong, bold, masculine style of leather fragrance. Opens with a really interesting opening of some nice, dusty, dry leather with this osmanthus and some ylang-ylang. So that osmanthus adds this kind of green, apricot, fruity touch to it. The ylang-ylang almost adds this floral rubberiness to it as well. So it's an interesting play on the textures that you get with that opening. As you get to the mid and the dry down, you get a little bit more dry amber that comes through. So it pulls that kind of dusty leather down, gets a little bit darker, but you also get a little bit of that sweet creaminess that you find in the original Kasaid that kind of works its way into the background, just kind of linking the two with that similar scent DNA, but through and through, this is a very dry, dusty, leathery style of fragrance. This is like wearing a nice thick leather jacket, riding a motorcycle on new tires, and you're kind of driving past like an apricot orchard and there's like a pile of dry wood on the side of the road. Probably the best visual I could give you. Performance on this is pretty good. I get about 6-7 hours of longevity, and it only projects moderately for about an hour and a half before it does settle back in, which is probably a good thing because this is a very aggressive, dry, dusty leather fragrance. And it's absolutely gorgeous and definitely worth checking out. That's Lattafa's Kasaid El Shabab. All right, next up, we're going with one of the fanciest bottles in this collection, and that's Lattafa's Mora. Now, this is apparently inspired by of Penhaleon's Halfeti Cedar. Have not smelt that fragrance. I can't own all the expensive fragrances to do comparisons. But what I can tell you is this is an absolutely gorgeous, elegant, cozy, alluring style of fragrance. Kind of dark, rich, sweet, spicy, with some absolutely beautiful woods that's in there. It opens up with this nice blood orange style of accords, some like citruses that has a little bit of a darkness to it, a little bit of sweetness to it. And you get this nice kind of spicy Coca-Cola sweetness, some honeyed, waxy style of saffron that works in there. Just a nice balance of some different sweet accords, some different spices, just gives it a nice elegance, almost a luxurious nature that comes through. In the dry down, you get some nice smooth woods that work into the base, the cardamom style of spice that's there, with those sweet notes that sit on top. Like I said, very cozy, inviting, sexy, alluring. A unisex fragrance. I don't think this kind of tilts masculine or feminine. I do think it kind of sits right in the middle, and it's just an absolutely beautiful scent profile on this. Performance on this is average. I get about 5-6 hours worth of longevity, and it does project out moderately for about an hour and a half before it does settle back in. If you're looking for that kind of dark, rich, sweet, luxurious style of like elegant fragrance, you might want to check this one out. That's Lattafa's Mora. All right, next up, we're going with one of the bolder fragrances in this list, and it's Lattafa's Anfas Oud. Now, this fragrance really reminds me of that homage interlude style of DNA, very dark, smoky, spicy, little touches of balsamic sweetness that's mixed in there. It doesn't hit that oregano note, but through and through, that's definitely what you're going to be reminded of. Opens with some nice frankincense, nutmeg, saffron. Very smoky, has that spice, that touch of leather that's in there, but it also has that churchy style of incense that has that smoke, but also has that kind of balsamic nature that kind of just wraps its way around with just a little pop of sweetness just to kind of bring things together. But it's a very kind of burnt wood, ashy style of scenticord that goes on to this, just balanced off with some nice spices and a little bit of leather. As you get to the dry down, you get this nice dry amber that works its way through. A little bit of a woody oud that's in there. It's not an oudy style of fragrance, but it is kind of a woody oud that you can detect in this. And this amber kind of almost gives like a spiced vanilla vibe that adds a little bit of sweetness, just a kiss of it, to kind of balance off that spicy, smoky, burnt wood sort of accord that goes on to it. And it's absolutely beautiful. Really nice mix of those scenticords, the little hints of the leather, the little hints of that woody oud, just makes this a nice, complex, dark, bold, rich, mysterious fragrance. And I absolutely love this one. Performance on this is beast mode. I get 8-10 hours of longevity, no problem. And it does push off really big for about 2-3 hours before it does settle back in. If you're looking for a dark, mysterious, masculine, bold fragrance, you might want to check this one out. That's Lattafa's Anfas Oud. All right, next up, we're going with one from the Reyes series, and it's Lattafa's Ra'ed Oud. Now, this is a fairly new release from the Reyes series, I believe. It's new to my collection, that's all I know. Really a nice sort of green, woody leather style of fragrance, but it opens up with a nice bright citrus and this raspberry accord, this kind of red berry tart sweet, mixing with sort of a soft, sweety leather, as well as a little bit like a cypriol that's coming through, like almost like kind of a fresh, green, aromatic spiciness that works its way through. Really interesting opening to this. Has a lot going on to it, but it has this brightness, this freshness that's working with these spices, as well as that sweety leather. But as this gets to the dry down, it gets a very kind of dry, woody style of scenticord, moving in to more of like a leather jacket territory than the suede. So the suediness kind of gets a little bit heavier and a little bit drier when it moves in with those woods, but it also has this nice green aromatic nature to it, this fresh spiciness that works its way through, that kind of maintains this kind of this brightness to it, even though it's kind of a dark, dry, woody leather style of fragrance. Very interesting scent DNA on this. A little bit of that cypriol gives it the sharpness that comes through, almost a little bit of a smoky nature that's there. Absolutely a beautiful green, leathery, dry wood style of fragrance. The oud in this comes across as more of a dry, woody oud. It's not medicinal or animalic style of oud. So there is a hint of a little bit of a Middle Eastern vibe going on to it, but it's not very forward. It just kind of supports that overall woody, leather, green, aromatic spiciness that's there. Beautiful fragrance. Performance on this is great. I get about 7-8 hours worth of longevity. It does push off pretty good for about 2 hours before it does settle back in. If you're into kind of green, leathery, dry wood fragrances with a little bit of spice, a little bit of character, a little bit of punch to it, you might want to check this one out. That's Lattafa's Ra'ed Oud. All right, next up, going with one from the Hayati line, and it's Lattafa's Hayati Gold Elixir. Now, this fragrance doesn't get any love because the Hayati Black, though the Invictus-y one, that one gets all the love. No one pays attention to the Gold Elixir, and they should, because this, in my opinion, is the hidden gem in the Hayati line. Really interesting kind of fruit, sweet, peachy leather, vanilla, woodsy style of fragrance. Absolutely gorgeous scent accord on this one. Opens with a nice kind of bright, lively style of citrus, some grapefruit, some bergamot, has a little bit of a tartness to it, but it has this cassis and this peach in there that gives it this nice kind of candied, fruity peach style of scent accord with some saffron and some leather, giving it sort of a soft, suede leather sort of feel going on to it. So this peach accord that comes through is very kind of candied, fruit sweet, this juicy style of peach, kind of wrapped in this saffron and this soft, suede leather. Just absolutely a beautiful combination of those sweet notes with those spice, leather, the softness, gentle. It's just absolutely chef kiss amazing. As you get towards the dry down, you get some nice creamy vanilla that works its way through, along with some nice soft wood for it to sit on. So it's a nice kind of balance between different sweet accords, that vanilla with that peach that works in there, and that saffron, the leatheriness mixing with those woods. Just a beautiful kind of dance between all those scent accords, making this an absolutely gorgeous fragrance. At first, I thought this was going to be a feminine-leaning fragrance just based off of it being a gold series, but this actually is a unisex fragrance. Might even tilt a little bit on the masculine side, but it's definitely something that both males and females can wear. And I think it's just absolutely beautiful no matter who you are. Performance on this, pretty good, 6-7 hours worth of longevity, and it does push off fairly good for about an hour and a half before it does settle back in. If you're looking for an interesting peachy leather, vanilla wood style of scent accord, you definitely want to check this one out. That's Lattafa's Hayati Gold Elixir. All right, last, but certainly not least, going with another flanker, and it's Lattafa's Oud Najdia. Now, this fragrance is a flanker to one of the more popular Lattafa fragrances, Lattafa's Najdia, but this one takes things in a little bit of a different direction, and I absolutely love what they do with this one. Opens with that apple and that bergamot, so it has that brightness, that sweet style of opening, that Invictus-y Najdia style of opening. But in the mid, you get this really nice, warm, spicy cinnamon that works through, and these nice, rich, deep style of wood. So this is like a baked apple pie kind of sitting on a nice wooden cutting board in that opening, and as it works its way to the mid, just a nice kind of mature, warm, cozy sort of twist on that lively, flirty style of Saint Diné that Najdia has. Still has that kind of flirtiness to it, but there's a little bit more sensuality that comes through with that warm spiciness and those woods. As you get to the dry down, you get a little bit of vanilla, a little bit of a muskiness that comes through, but through and through, it maintains that kind of sweet, warm, spicy, sort of woody accord that works its way through. Has that Najdia sort of backbone and DNA, but just a little bit more mature and a little bit more sensual, if you ask me. And that's why I absolutely love this one. Performance on this is great too. I get 7-8 hours worth of longevity, and it does push off pretty good for the first hour and a half to 2 hours before it does settle back in. If you're looking for kind of a twist on that Najdia DNA, taking it more kind of that warm, spicy, baked apple pie direction, you might want to check this one out. That's Lattafa's Oud Najdia. All right, so there you have it. That's 10 hidden gems from the Lattafa house, but I want to hear from you guys. What's one of your hidden gems from the Lattafa line? Comment down below. I love hearing from you guys. I love getting your different recommendations, your hidden gems, taste and scent profiles. Appreciate you. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.